Welcome to the next installment of the Knowledge Mobilization Flash Talk series. This is a partnership of the Wisconsin Center for Education Research, the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, with support from the United States Department of Education. Today, we are joined by Dr. Jadelle Davis, who is a postdoctoral scholar in community engaged research and evaluation at the Wisconsin Center for Education Research. She's going to share part 2 of our conversation around a rubric for reviewing racially equitable evidence that we began last spring, and we're looking forward to our shared conversation together. So with that, Dr. Davis, I'll turn it over to you.
Yay, thank you, Annalie. And hello, everyone. Let us pray that my computer holds up. That's great. Okay, so again, excited to be with y'all today and talk a little more about the project. And it has expanded since we spoke. We spoke in May, the beginning of May, the first time we were introducing this. And so we want to share updates and some clarifications, some important clarifications. And then the question for today is super meta, but very important for us to reflect on as researchers and evaluators. And so today we'll focus on progress and then design usage. So just as a recap of what this tool is. So just kind of simplified it here on this slide. So it is fundamentally a tool to evaluate existing strategies, interventions, research studies, and review evidence-based and gauge the extent to which those studies align with racially equitable conceptual approaches and practices. And then it is also for generating evidence. So to initiate the design of research and evaluation projects that center racial equity. That generating evidence is relatively new. So our key stance is also new. We've outlined this in the original rubric. And so we wanted to say it's progress, not perfection. And even the author of the main paper that we sought, guidance with to create this, in discussions with her, it's very important to say that remember that there are valid constraints to structuring every aspect of research with a basis in racial equity, and aiming for perfection is counterproductive. But what we want to focus our energy on are those aspects of the research process that we can control, and areas where research teams are best equipped to center racial equity. That doesn't mean like being lax with those things, but it's really, and what this rubric wants to do is really process and really consider, what do we have control over? How can we do this in a way that it aligns with racial equity? And how do we talk about the things that we didn't have control over to also say like, well, next time if we had this control, we could do this, but always centering around these ideals of racial equity. So our call to action is also explicit in there. And so overall, we want to respond to the consequences of historical and ongoing racial inequality with accountable action in the design and assessment of research and evaluation studies. That's what we're centering. We know we go over why racial equity, you could read it in there, but this country, especially specifically in US context, constructed processes based in racial inequality. We are responding to that with equity. And so then our overall goal is to be accountability that is accessible and legible for multiple users. So this tool to be accountable to that, and then a tool for infusing an understanding of who is a researcher beyond the academy also. So these tools are not just for researchers and evaluators. We're expanding to use for educators, the educators, or young people, and everyone else who can, in the community, who can come in and be research and evaluators in their own right. So just as a 5 dimensions to the rubric: context description, all the processes, right? Research question, issue presentation. How do you talk about even the issue itself? Study design and data collection, data analysis and interpretation, and then findings and outcomes. So we hit every one of those pieces, and even the before and then the dissemination after. Those are also represented there, but in terms of the action and the doing, these are the 5 pieces that we've focused on in this rubric. And so this is another, just a view of it. I'm not going to go through this again, but just remember this is what it looks like. A for real rubric, especially for me as a former classroom teacher, love a rubric. So here are the updates. So we've gone through multiple rounds of review with multiple stakeholders in the academy and Madison School District and the community. And the Equity Center folks have been a part of that, and so we've gotten their feedback as well. We're testing with youth teams now, so there's a number of projects out of WEC in cooperation with DPI and other stakeholders where young people are doing research and evaluation, and we are bringing them into the process of designing these tools and evaluating them to see, like, are these useful? And with that, as a part of that, initiating multiple versions of this rubric. So our focus today are on these versions. So the generating evidence part. So the main rubric is about reviewing current existing evidence. And then now we're shifting focus to generating evidence and versions where we can go through, like, it could be an app, it can be another visual like this, it can look a number of different ways. That's why we're also incorporating young people and what would be useful from their vantage point. But just to go over this really, really quickly, I didn't change anything, Annalie, so there's, I don't know if there's anything we're not supposed to see, but as you can see, the users, researcher, educator, practitioner, and youth. So those are our audiences. And then the uses are between the review evidence and the generating evidence. So we have plans, we have all the things for the testing and the development of that there. So this is just a sneak peek into our plan. And then for today, we are thinking about our thinking. So we want to think about what do we do as research and evaluators when we're conceptualizing and designing research and evaluation projects. So as we think about that generating evidence, just really being intentional about, like, how do we approach it? What are the first things we do? What's our go-to? What are we automatically primed to do, especially those that are very, very experienced? Are there things that we do without thinking, without question, without just automatically? So these are the brains. It's more of a brainstorm here. So first, what do you think about when starting a research evaluation project? What do you do? Do you have a journal? Do you, like, jot some idea of a picture? Do you draw pictures? What do you think about when starting to look for research on something? So we're working with young people on this, so forming a knowledge base. What's your go-to? Are there articles you return to? Are there methods you return to? Are there search terms that you return to? And then, especially with engaging with young people, what do you consider when beginning research or developing a knowledge base with young people, if you have? And if you haven't, why haven't you? But also, if you were to, what are some things that you might think about in consideration of young people, their development stages and things like that? I'm always thinking about middle schoolers, my favorite people. So what would I do? What would I say? How would I describe this to a middle schooler or high schooler if we were to start to get them going? Time. That's it for now. And so what I want to do is put into the chat this Jamboard that has all of these questions on different pages, and you can use stickies or text boxes in order to respond to that. And so, oh, that is my chat. Oh, you got it. Okay, yes. Here's the Jamboard. But again, think about your thinking. This is, again, in service of generating evidence in the starting stages. So how do you get there? Good.